All right, everybody. So look, a lot of you guys know that I'm good friends with my boy Jumpsuit Pablo. He's got a large channel over here on YouTube, and he's been a really good dude to me, man. And he's taking us on some rides.
I took over a black prison gang during my 10 years in prison. And guess what? I talked to the fellas, you know, the fellas who I was in there with, and some that I wasn't in there with but are still a part. They're coming over today.
We've had some adventures with old boy.
I'm sorry, and I apologize for the video I made saying that I took over a black prison gang when I was in prison.
Hey, oh my God, bro. I'm good. Listen, I'm good, guys. They let me go, I'm fine.
Also, I did not. Oh, hey, Jumpsuit Pablo here. This may look familiar. And first, let me say, if you're someone who's new to the TikTok, recently came, or just someone who couldn't see through the fact that I was trolling the trolls, I'm sorry.
But yo, he has something really big coming up in his life that might send him back to jail or prison. Either way, it's gonna be a consequence that he's gonna have to face. And this is something that has been looming over my dude's head for almost 2 years. I've known about it for a while, but he's just now coming public with this whole thing because it's unavoidable. It's gonna come to a head, and there's no way that he's gonna be able to not deal with this. So he gave me the inside scoop. He dropped it on his channel yesterday, and we wanted to talk about some of the issues if somebody who is on YouTube, somebody who's on TikTok, somebody who has some sort of notoriety in social media goes back to prison after talking about being in prison, talking about gangs, facing all these issues and being really public with what's going on in their life. What does that mean when you go back to prison? What does it mean for your people being alone out here while you're locked up doing time? We're gonna get into all of this stuff with him, so let's go! All right, everybody, we are here with the man, the myth, the legend, Jumpsuit Pablo. I know that a lot of you guys have seen the content that I've done on him before. Man, he took us on a ride. He took us on a whole ass ride. Nobody can say that he's not an amazing entertainer and that he doesn't have a really creative streak in him. That'll keep you on the edge of your seat, man. Like a lot of that stuff, a lot of people said, yo, how'd you get okie doke like that? Like, look, man, like this is my dude. This is my homie. He's putting this stuff out. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to be concerned. The same way I would be concerned about anyone in my community if I saw videos of them and there was any type of possibility that y'all got kidnapped by a gang, I would be concerned, man. I got a big heart, especially for a friend. And Jump is definitely a friend of mine. So Jumpsuit, thank you for coming and talking to us today. We got something a lot more serious to talk about today. Are you capping on this? Is any of this not real?
No, definitely not capping on any of it. I wish I was. I really wish I was. This is something that's been hanging over my head before I even started my YouTube career. So, yeah, definitely not capping on any of this. And we're just going to have to see where it goes.
So, yeah, like I knew about this a while ago, but this is your business. You know what I'm saying? This isn't mine to speak on. But, you know, you let me know a little bit of it. So what's the deal? You might be going back to prison. That's a possibility. It's in the cards.
It's in the cards. It's a possibility. So basically, you know, the context needed here. I was released from prison January 1st, 2022. I started my YouTube social media journey really around the beginning of 2023. The incident in question here happened just a few short months in 2022. Okay, so the year before I even really started doing social media. All I can really say is what the incident allegedly was is I was at a bar. Someone else was at a bar. People had drinks. Something happened, you know, and next thing you know, I'm charged with second-degree assault and battery. The reason it's still a misdemeanor, it's not a felony, but the reason it's second degree instead of third, which third would be the less serious, is because apparently there was a broken jaw or something like that involved. And so that bumped it up to a second degree assault and battery. That carries 0 years. I could do 0 years if found guilty, probation, something like that. or all the way up to 3 years in prison. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. And it's kind of coming up on that 2-year mark, whereas, your court case doesn't really go past 2 years. It's going to get handled within that time frame. So looking like it's going to,
those are my people that like don't follow you, and maybe this is their first time seeing you. First off, welcome to catching up, because this is the dude. But just so you guys know, Jumpsuit has a criminal past. Like he said, he had just gotten out of prison, but were those considered violent crimes? Do you have a history of what's considered violent crimes?
Yeah, I mean, technically they're recognized as violent crimes. These are violent felonies, armed robberies, 2 counts of armed robberies, and just all the associative charges, possession of deadly weapon during violent crime, things like that, went along with it. And I did 10 years. I had a 10-year sentence, mandatory minimum 10-year sentence for armed robbery in South Carolina. And that's considered a violent sentence. Now, it's funny how it works. It's a little confusing when you think of, just assault and battery in the 2nd degree. You think, oh, that was a violent occurrence. If I'm found guilty, that would be a violent sentence. Any misdemeanor in South Carolina is considered a non-violent sentence, right? So even though you may think this was a violent thing that happened, it'll still be a non-violent sentence, which means you do about half the time you're sentenced to, compared to a violent sentence, you'll do about 90% of the time you're sentenced to in South Carolina.
So your criminal history might come into play as far as what they look at as sentencing, but it's not going to get you like an upward departure or any aggravating factors like that.
It's definitely going to come into play, and I don't know how much it will come into play. I have a lawyer, I have a paid lawyer at this point, and without saying too much, I know for a fact that the history is at least coming into play for one person involved in this chain of, the court system. That's being looked at for sure. So
you have co-defendants in this case?
Not co-defendants. There is a victim.
Okay. So like we talked about before this, I definitely don't want you to say anything that could be incriminating on yourself at all whatsoever. Everything that we're talking about is 100% alleged, and that's why you're being, just so the viewers at home know, he's not being shifty and non-transparent with this for no reason. This is an ongoing court case, and anything that he says right now that exposes himself or could be twisted into something that he's not actually saying, that's how things work in court. And if they wheeled in a video of me and Jump talking into the courtroom before he goes to sentencing, or if he chooses that he should go to trial, that would be a nightmare. So that's why he's being a little bit coded and a little bit reserved. We discussed this before the interview, and I instructed him implicitly not to say anything that would incriminate himself in this situation. So you went to a bar and allegedly at some point in the evening, something happened. Somebody got hurt. They had a glass jaw or whatever. And they, somehow bad things happened. So really what I wanted to get into with this interview with you, though, is some of your feelings about what might happen if you do get locked up, because, you have grown to be a, internet famous, YouTube, TikTok, like every platform that you touch, you get big numbers. And not just big numbers as far as your followers and your subscriber count, you get huge viral views. And some of the stuff that you've talked about, I'm wondering if you're concerned about any of it, because, you've said that you took over a black gang in prison, and then that led into this whole thing with the kidnapping where you mentioned, your gang and stuff like this, and mentioned other gangs. Are you worried if you go into prison about any blowback from any of that coming at you?
Well, on this specific subject, let's talk about the black gang subject. Just zero in on that. Am I worried about that? I'm not worried about that. If it comes to, if it comes down to that, I got to go to prison and face some of these guys who are involved in that. I'm not necessarily worried. I'm not saying nothing may happen. Here's the thing. When you go back and view the first ever original video, however you want to interpret the sentence, I took over a black prison gang. You know, you can interpret it in the most extreme way, or you can interpret it in, you know, this is one prison yard out of many in one state out of many across the nation, and things work certain ways in different prisons, and whoever's the most valuable and most important and can bring the most to the table, I don't care who you are, how, you know, what you want to call it, it changes things, and there's a hierarchy there, and it doesn't have to do so much with rank within the gang, you know. And I mean, it is what it is from me telling from my perspective. If somebody is in there and sees me and they took that the wrong way, and they haven't checked in with any higher ups, or they don't want to go through any chain of commands, and they just decide they want to take things in their own hands, maybe they will. Maybe something will come my way, you know. But as you and me know, who goes to prison and doesn't have trials and tests come their way? Name a man who's gone to prison and hasn't had someone try them or something come their way. I'll show you somebody who's got a rabbit's foot up their butt. You know, you're a lucky guy if you haven't at least once had something happen. I think, you know, with that, I'm not too worried about it. I've talked to the people who are actually really have the say so in it. There's some things they didn't mind and laughed off. There's some things they did mind about that, and we made amends on that and did what we needed to do with that. So for the most part, I feel I'm in good standing. If I'm not, I mean, it is what it is. I guess I'll hopefully come home and make a video about it. You know what I mean?
What does make amends mean? Do you mean that you guys discussed it and spoke it out like gentlemen? Did you have to make a financial amends? Did you have to go and put in work?
Well, the main thing, you know, if we're talking about that situation, obviously I was telling a story that from my perspective was authentic. You know, I wasn't lying, and I was telling a true story. Once I told that true story, it started to quickly go viral just because of the unbelievability or the absurdity of it. And so you had a lot of new people who know nothing about me coming into the comments, and they're saying, and more so wishing lots of bad, terrible things to happen to me because of this video. And I guess I, you know, instead of getting in the comments and like duking it out and arguing back and forth with nameless, faceless people, I chose, hey, you know, maybe I'll troll the trolls. All right. And we've done an interview about this. Maybe I'll just, if they think all this bad stuff's going to happen to me, I'll just pretend it has and get their hopes up, put all this hot air in them, and then pull the rug out from under them at the last minute and show them none of that really happened to me. And you're full of crap if you think it would, you know? So a lot of people didn't like that. So through pretending that all this stuff was happening, some people who are still in prison or have went back to prison who are affiliated in this gang with me were concerned and were worried that it was so believable and it was getting so massive, so many, like 15, 20 million views. It was on World Star. It was on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Some were worried that that would affect them negatively in some way because people in a position of power over them within the prison would believe it and think that they were doing something and causing something or orchestrating something, and that would just cause them more heat. And so they did reach out to me and say, hey, if nothing else, just come out and let everybody know it's a bunch of BS and nobody's really doing anything, you know. And so I did come forward and do that because of that. So, you know, that was more so where they had a problem with, you know, don't make it seem like we are doing something to you, you know, don't bring any heat on us because people genuinely believe we are responsible for something happening to you that's not really happening. So that was the thing, that was the big issue with it. And, you know, so I did what they asked me to do, of course. Other than that, I mean, if somebody's got a problem with it, I mean, I guess it'll be what it'll be. I mean, you know, I mean,
You're
it's
not a little dude, bro.
Yeah,
You're not
I mean,
dude.
And you know, I'm not Mike Tyson either, but at the end of the day, if it's this guy who's got a problem about this thing for this reason, if it's something because of YouTube or TikTok, if it's not that, then it'll be a guy who wants to cut in front of me in the shower because he thinks I'm soft, or somebody who doesn't want to pay me a suit that I won fair and square in a poker game. I mean, when people say something's going to happen to him in prison, I think they put too much significance on something happening to someone in prison. Something happens to everyone in prison, and it can be as small as somebody stepping up and saying some words, and you handle that, and it can be as big as you just getting trashed, you know. And I mean, but the thing, you know, I did 10 years, and in that 10 years, I counted in solitary out of boredom one time, 44 things happened to me in that 10 years. And, you know, if I go back and something else happens, you know what that'll be? Number 45. And I'll come home and make a masterful story and very entertaining video out of it, and bring that to my audience. I mean, you know, it is what it is. As long as I live through it, I really don't give crap, you know?
Yeah. I don't think that people at home who haven't been through it, and even some people who've been to like county jail, minimum custody places, stuff like that, I don't think they understand how constant the level of fuckery is when you're in a real pop-in joint. You know what I'm saying? If you're one of those places that they call gladiator school, it's called that for a reason. If you're in a penitentiary, there's real life stuff happening there all the time, like 24/7. Like, I get a lot of comments from people saying, oh, he has a story for everything. I have stories that I'll never be able to tell you guys.
Right.
Like, the majority of my stories, you guys are not going to ever hear. I tell you guys the things that I can without it putting myself or anybody else at any type of exposure or liability,
JD,
homie. But
JD, I got stories that would get me 1 million views right now. And I can't tell them. I just can't, you know. I'll never be able to tell them unless I'm on my deathbed, you know. Like, man, it's, you know, what I've given is just such a fraction, you know, and it sucks, but that's just the way it is. But you're right.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, man, like there's just certain lines that you can't cross. Like, I'm not going to be on here doing things that could put other people's freedom at risk. I'm not going to end up in somebody's paperwork because I said too much. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people, you know, half the people are like, oh, he has a story for everything. Half the people are like, oh, bro, he's on here admitting to crimes. Trust and believe I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? But I wanted to also ask you, like, so as far as, I don't understand how South Carolina prisons work. If you get 1 year, will that be a county sentence? And if it goes to a year and a day, that's prison. Is that how that works there?
I think it's anything over a year. Technically, you got to go to prison. You can't do it in the county. So yeah, you know, I don't know. And like, you know, I mean, it carries up to 3 years. It's all nonviolent. So you're going to do generally half off that. But like I said, you know, you and me know they're not going to give you the max unless you're the most extreme instance of that crime, which even if what they're alleging is true, it wouldn't be that. Or if you take it to trial, and cost them time, money, and resources, they will hammer you with that max. And everybody who's been to prison knows that. So it definitely won't be 3 years, which will be a year and a half. Now, could I do 2 year and a half easily? Yes. But you know, that's just me. And at this point, things have changed. You know, I don't just got to consider me anymore. You know, I'm working on building a family. I have a girlfriend. We're very serious. We've been together quite a while. I've made my family proud. I've reconnected with my sisters, my father, my mother. You know, my sisters are all older than me, and I'm 31. They have husbands. I met their husbands. They have children. I have nieces. You know, there's just a lot of people to consider more than myself now, and that's what worries me. And I have a community I've built who believes in me and cares about me, and that's what makes it hard. Not just me having to go through something that I've already done, you know, for 10 years.
So aside from the fact that like all of this is alleged, whatever did end up going down, or didn't go down, do you feel like having just done a decade in prison had you in a mind space, in a mindset where maybe things happened that wouldn't have happened if you hadn't have been through that? I mean, it definitely had to. Do you feel like you were institutionalized in any way, shape, or form, or that you had that prison mindset still where, you know, you can't let certain things slide? Do you think that any of that could have allegedly played a factor in this?
Well, you know, I'll answer like this. I mean, just that incident aside, no matter what did or did not happen, just the time frame, you know, April after the January I got out. That's not even 10 months compared to 10 years in there. That's nowhere near enough time to really break away from that mindset, because I mean, you can't even really begin to break away while you're in there. You know, I mean, it's, I've tried to treat it like a light switch. You know, this is who I got to be in here. And these are the kind of the rules I got to play by and standards I got to hold myself to in here. And then hopefully when I get out, I can just flip that off. But, you know, it's not that easy. And I have friends who, and I've made videos on my YouTube, and it's, you know, you have to dig to find them, but because I've made so many, but I mean, I have video interviews with my friends talking about how they were worried to take me out in public. They're worried to take me out to just downtown or around people. They're because they could just tell, man, something wasn't right with me. And then also in the same video talking about how much progress I've made, because now it's been a year and a half, more than that. And just coming back into humanity, you know, like not being this cold, just inmate, convict, prisoner, you know, that you kind of got to embody when you're in there. And so just getting out of there, man, it is hardwired, if not mentally, then physically, or both. You know, there are certain things you can't allow. There are certain ways you have to respond to certain things, or else you are inviting more of those things to come your way. And it is so hard, man, to just get out here in the real world where people, they're not considering that anybody around them may be dealing with this or be trying to make that adjustment. And it's not on them. It's on you. You know, it's on you to go ahead and make that adjustment as quick as possible. And that's just not easy, man. And so if things come your way, if things came my way, that would be an extremely difficult thing to just, you know, hang up your old ways that have, you know, they've been ingrained into you physically. Like if you don't respond this way, then it's going to end up worse for you.
It's a knee-jerk reaction because everything in prison is written out in black and white.
Right.
There's not any gray lines about what's acceptable, what's unacceptable. And if something unacceptable happens, it's very predetermined how you need to react, or the consequences are going to get exponentially worse for you. If somebody calls me a punk in prison and I go, you know what? I'm going to be the bigger man today.
Right.
That's not going to end well for me.
I'm glad you said that, because before you even said it, I was about to use the same word. I was about to say prison is a place where the bigger person doesn't exist. You can't be the bigger person. Being the bigger person doesn't exist. Like being the bigger person will only cause you to be the more troubled person.
You're going to be the victim. The bigger person is the victim in there.
Yeah. They don't recognize a bigger person in there.
But then you get out here, and it's funny because the things that are going to get you, they're going to garner you respect. They're going to garner you a form of status. They're going to be like absolutely essential to your very survival in there, are the very things that out here are going to send you back to prison.
Yeah.
So it really is hard, because once you get out, you have to put all of that down and walk away from that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in that cycle, and people don't understand that. And then on top of that, you got respect in prison because you knew how to conduct yourself and you handled your business. And yes, it might be the bottom of the barrel of moral etiquette in there, but then you handled your business, you stood on it, and then you get out from being respected, and you get out here and everybody kind of looks down on you. They're like, oh, that's a criminal. That's a junkie. That's a scumbag.
If you handle it the same way you would in there, out here, you are out of control. You are unhinged. You are you're crazy, man. You're out of your mind. You need help. You know, you're there's something wrong with you. But this is what's all you've known, and this is what you've been taught by example and by experience for the last however long you've been in there. And it's such a 180 to be able to do in such a short amount of time.
And we have an epidemic of people out here who will literally let anything slide out of their man pleaser, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, people will just literally say anything to anyone.
Yeah.
Like there's never going to be consequences. And it's wild to me, because the solution to that is punching more people in their face.
Right.
That's what's going to get people to act correctly. And we all know that from being in prison. But if you do that out here, you're going to end up back in prison. And I would rather just swallow my pride and walk away from somebody being disrespectful than leave my wife and my kids and my parents. You know what I'm saying? Like I do another set. My parents are going to die while I'm in prison.
Right.
My wife is going to be out here to fend for herself. And so this is what a good segue into what I wanted to talk with you about. What are your concerns as far as your girl, man, Ariel? If you go in, is she going to be able to maintain the bills? What's that going to look like for you?
Well, you know, but before we ever worried about bills, it was like, because this has been going on since before we dated, and it's something that, as far as what's been hanging over my head. And you know me, or not you know me, but you know what I know as far as when it comes to keeping a girl when you go to prison. If you think that they're going to stick with you, you're a fool, right? You know, it's generally that's how it's viewed. Now, I understand there's a few exceptions, but generally, like, you should just go ahead and chalk it up, you know? And so that was my mindset. And was, you know, used to tell me, I don't care if you get this amount or that amount or this amount, I will, you know, and I would just never believe it because I've just been through it. And I'm like, listen, it's harder than you think, you know, it's different when it comes down to it. But I think there's certain limits of time that you can reasonably expect someone to stick around, and any longer than that, you're a fool, and you definitely can't blame them for not being able to do it, because you should know that that's just unreasonable. I think anything I'm facing, even up to the max and what I'd have to do off of it, even though I don't see that ever happening, the maximum, if anything in that realm is doable. Just by the judgment of our the strength of our relationship, which is something only us know. So I think we're in a good place on that. Now, aside from that, financially, I that does worry me. You know, she has her own job, she makes her own money, but she definitely, you know, she's not paying all the bills. I'm not paying all the bills, but I'm paying a good portion. You know, what I earn is what she earns, and what she earns is what I earn. And we're a team. We're a couple. We live in this house together. We take care of cats. We go out and hang out together. All my friends are her friends. You know, we don't go out unless we're both going out. So we're just very much, you know, together on a lot of things. And if it was, you know, if my income was to completely disappear from this household, that's definitely a problem. And I am worried that, you know, I worry about that. I do. And I don't know what to do, because another problem is, as you know, with the amount of time I'm looking at, it's very likely I'll be sent, if I get any of this time, I'll be sent to a yard, which is, it's not going to be medium. Definitely won't be maximum. It'll likely be minimum, because this isn't a lot of time. Although to some people it may be, but, you know, in the prison world, it's not a lot of time. And I'll be sent somewhere where, you know, no one's going to, you know, these risks don't happen. There's not an environment, a hustle environment where big money's being made to where you can send money home and pay bills. So I'm not going to really have all that. All I can really do to better myself is exercise and just mental, you know, all that stuff. But I'm not going to be able to do anything for anyone out here as compared to when I'm doing 10 years at mediums and maximums. And there's a lot more lucrative opportunities there.
So let me ask you this. Where you're at minimums, is there an availability of cell phones to your knowledge?
It even if there are cell phones, it's not an environment where you can utilize that cell phone to make any significant amount of money.
Yeah.
It's going to be more so just randomly calling out, sending a few texts here and there, but you're not going to be able to get to work on that cell phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Because you know, the viewers at home don't know, and for good reason, what your prison hustle was when you were doing your big boy time. I do. You know, so I in the back of my mind wondered if you could go back to doing that, or if it would be a situation that would be conducive to you being able to make content at all. But
No. If anything, I could probably get, if for those who are interested, we can do some phone interviews or just some phone calls uploaded, or maybe from Ariel's POV, just how she's handling this. We'll figure out something and do our best, as a team, and with your help, just a team that means me and Ariel, that means my family, and that means my friends that I've met along my content journey, which is mostly you and Ian and good people in the community like that. We'll do our best to make content, but with what limited resources we have.
Bro, you have worked so hard to build your platforms, and I've loved seeing your success. It's been amazing, and literally anything that I can do on my end, you know what I'm saying? If we can do a phone call a week, if you need to call collect, you could call collect. Sure. We could figure out doing a phone interview. We can, chop it up and edit it. And if we need to send it to your girl so she can put it on your platform, whatever we need to do to help you guys get through, that you've got that with me and Jax. And we would definitely want to have your back in any way humanly possible through this. Now, I know that a lot of people have kind of speculated on the internet, why did he wait so long to tell us? Like, he's been facing this whole time that we knew him. Like, do you want to just kind of explain why you waited till you waited? I mean, I know that it's been looming and on your head this entire time. And it's really not avoidable anymore, because something is going to come to a head. So the timing on why you're talking about it now makes sense, but why didn't you mention this before?
Well, I think part of it was, like I said, this happened 2 or 3 months after I got out of prison. I didn't even have YouTube video. I didn't even, YouTube wasn't even a thing for me, much less build a community almost 200,000 strong, who deserve to know what's going on with things like that. If you're going to support a former inmate, who's making related content. Because I know if I was just a person and I want to support somebody, I want to make sure you're not in there for like, some sex crimes or, child. I deserve to know that what's going on with you and be able to decide, hey, I can get over that and I'm okay with that and I can continue to support you despite that. So I knew I owed it to them to eventually tell them. At one point, I literally wasn't allowed to even say anything about it on social media. That was like a bond condition while I was on parole. Wow. I'm no longer on parole. And I think, and I've never heard that. And I don't know if that's something that just popped up with this new age of just social media or what, or if it's because, they were aware that I did have a TikTok. I didn't even really have YouTube at the time, but I did have a TikTok platform. And so it maybe that influence like that addition into the conditions, but I'm no longer on parole. I got off parole last December, so it's been about a year since I've been off parole. So that's not really a factor anymore. That's not an issue. And of course, you can't really say too much about what happened because it has, my court date hasn't come up yet. You don't want to get on here and say what happened. I don't want to get on here and offer, hey, something happened, but I can't say anything about it. Sorry. Like how do you go about explaining this situation without being stupid with how much you say, and how do you really go about that? But I just got to a point where it's about to happen. I don't want to spring it, the day it happens or the day after it happens. And my girlfriend has to get on here and say, oh, sorry guys, you won't see him for a while, or whatever. It's just kind of coming to a point where it's going to be right here in the very near future. And I'm just preparing everyone and being as honest as I can, and I made my own video and I'm just like, allegedly this, and this happened. And some people are like, I don't hear much sympathy for the other person in your video. Well, you're asking me to say that I did the things that I haven't even been found guilty of. If you want me to express sympathy for something that may or may not have even happened, and that's just one small reason why, you're going through in your head, how do I even present this? Because you're going to have people who want you to do things that you're not able to do yet, or you're not even able to do, it's just, so it was kind of difficult figuring out how to go about it. And I felt like, well, I'll just do that when I'm able to figure out the right way to present it. And I feel like I have. And so I did yesterday, and that's it.
So, did you discuss any of this with your legal counsel before talking about any of this, or do you just feel comfortable that you know what not to say enough to not give yourself any further exposure?
No, I mean, I didn't specifically talk with him about it, but I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I've not gotten on there and said I did anything, you know. I mean, here's the facts and here's what's not going to change. I am charged with this charge. And the details of this charge are that this happened at this place at this time with me involved. And so all I've really said is I'm charged with this, you know, this charge. And the reason I'm charged with this is because there was someone who this happened to, and they're saying it's me. And they're saying that's what happened. And that's, you know, I mean, whether I put that on a video or not, I mean, that's what's in the affidavit. That's what's in the charge paper. I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. I knew that was going to come up in the comments. And so I figured that I would ask you preemptively so that people could hear it straight out of your mouth. Because I know there's going to be people in the comments that are going to not get this far and they're going to be like, oh, JD's leading him into exposing himself. And we discussed that prior.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, if you're charged with it, I mean, all I can do is really tell you what I'm charged with and what the details of that charge paper are. That's not me telling you this happened. That's just me telling you, hey, when they handed me my charge paper, this is what was on it, and this is what it said I did. You know, and I mean, saying that doesn't change or you know, that it just is what it is. You know.
So while we're on the legal proceedings of this and how they can be affected and affect you, have you been offered any plea deal? Has the prosecutor said, hey, you know, if you just plead guilty to this, we'll give you a cookie, an extra pillow, and 3 months off your sentence? Or what have you been offered so far? What have you heard from the prosecutor?
Well, the prosecutor did say he would subscribe if I took his plea deal, but no, I'm just kidding. No, seriously, so the last I heard, my lawyer was saying that he strongly felt it wouldn't be any prison time and that he believed if I was to plead guilty to some type of plea deal, then it would result in probation or house arrest, you know, community, you know, that little mix. And who really cares what it is as long as it's not prison time? And so that's what he was telling me. And so we show up and he meets with the prosecutor, and apparently the prosecutor is saying they don't want to offer, you know, the plea deal of probation, but they don't necessarily want to make some recommendation that I should get prison time. And the specific reason was, like we talked about earlier, his big thing is that this allegedly happened not long after I finished doing 10 years in prison. And so it's in their mind, assuming I did do this and that assault is true, well, you just got out of prison and you already did something, right? Whereas the argument could be made, if any of this was true, this happened because I had just got out of prison and I didn't, you know, this person's not even ready for civilization yet, you know? And then you look at the fact that since this alleged incident, I have had no arrests, no issues, not even a noise complaint in 2 years since that. You know, throwing that out there. But basically they said, you know, at worst, they'll make no recommendation to the judge. So it's looking like it's pretty much going to be entirely in the judge's hands. So you're probably going to have this side show up and speak. And then there's probably going to be a lot of people on my side show up and speak. And it's just going to be what it's going to be, you know?
So are you just going to open plea to the judge? Is that your intention at this point?
It's a strong possibility. It's a strong possibility.
That's what I did on my last cases. And my last cases, I knew that I could beat them, but I'm in early recovery, and I was explaining to my sponsor all the different ways, like, I could beat this with this. I'm going to file this motion. And he's like, but are you lying? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's in court. It doesn't count. And he's like, bro, anything you build on a lie, the universe is going to take away. It doesn't work like that. And I'm like, so what? You want me to go to prison? He said, did you earn it? did you do the crimes? And I'm like, shit, yeah, I did all that stuff, bro.
Yeah.
And I was super not enthused about the idea of throwing myself at the mercy of a judge. That's really
Yeah.
what it is when you open plea. You're throwing yourself at the mercy of the judge. You're saying, I'm not going to argue my case. I'm just going to plead guilty and give me whatever you want to give me. And yeah, they have guidelines that they have to follow. But, you know, it was so obvious the transformative nature of my recovery and what the fruits of that were in my life and the recovery community and, you know, the community in general. You know, I was finally making the news, but it was for good stuff, not for my arrests. And I had so many people rally for me, like you're saying, you know, you're going to have people coming to, you know, speak on your behalf. And there was so much of that I lucked out and I got the house arrest.
Nice.
And if you get house arrest, anybody trying to grow a platform, I highly recommend house arrest. Get on house arrest.
I was about to say
literally
that,
no options of anything
house
to
arrest
do.
would probably be the best thing that ever happened to my career. I mean, I don't too much leave the house as it is, you know.
I still look like I'm on
where's
house
there
arrest,
to go
bro.
when you have a girlfriend and you're in a committed relationship over a year and you live together, and, you know, and all your friends are the same, or my friends and her friends. Where's there to go? I mean, you don't go to clubs, you don't go to bars. Who are you trying to meet? You know, I mean, you stay home and you chill and you make your videos and you watch your Netflix and you go out to eat and come home.
Best parts of my night is when my day is over and me and my wife get to just go lay in bed and eat snacks and watch TV and hang out, and our little dog cuddles us and farts all across us, bro. It's the best life.
Dude, I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything, especially when you've been in that steel bunk bed with those bed bugs and those those sheets with holes in them that are stained yellow, and you just, you know, man, there's nothing better than being at home in the bed, living a boring life, as a lot of people would call it, but man, it's the best life. There's nothing better than that. So, I mean, it in my mind, if you were to find me guilty for what you believe happened on that night, then you would have to understand that what happened, what you're finding me guilty of, must have been because this person was in a mindset that came from prison that had not wore off yet. And so if your punishment is to send this person back to the place that instilled that mindset, is this rehabilitation? Is this the best way to, you know, fix the problem?
So in South Carolina, with the climate, with the judges, do they actually believe still that prison is about reform and that they're doing reformative work and offering inmates programs and stuff that they're going to be able to better themselves with? Or do they kind of get that all they're doing is just punishment and warehousing people and compounding the trauma?
I honestly don't know, man. I really don't know. I'd hate to get on here and say anything the judge didn't like. I'd hate to get on here and be like, "Nah, the judges are full of crap," and he's watching this like, "Okay, buddy, can't wait for your court date." But I don't, you know, I don't know. I don't know how they genuinely feel, but I know this. Man, it is such a rare percentage that can really go through prison and like make a big change, you know, and I personally don't feel like that comes from anything that is offered to you in prison. And I feel like that is 100%. It just has to be in your mindset and has to be something you want for yourself. And you got to just love yourself enough to want better for yourself than what you just went through to just continue going through that. You got to be like, all right, like something better has gotta give. And you got to do that, you know.
None of my positive changes came from being incarcerated. Not a single one of them. I learned how to be a smarter criminal. I learned how to refine my hustle. I learned how to limit my exposure. You know, I learned new hustles. I learned how to fight better by getting my ass kicked a time or two and kicking some people's asses. I learned everything negative in prison. I did learn that I didn't want to go back to prison, but it wasn't something that reinforced changing the behavior for me. Where I learned all of that stuff, what honestly was, you know, treatment, sober houses, you know, getting therapy and mental health services, getting on some medication for a while that assisted with that. You know, I'm not on medication. I haven't been medicated in several years now, but I don't think that I would have survived without that. And then finally, you know, building and investing in myself, finding enough love for myself to be able to build a life that I wouldn't trade for anything. You know what I'm saying? Like I know 100% beyond the shadow of a doubt, there's nothing out there on those streets for me, bro.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really what it took for me. And so if people can find something in an incarcerative situation that helps them better themselves, I applaud that. But we didn't have any services or programs in where I was at that would offer anything to someone like me. You know, that we had some services and they were generic cookie cutter crap that, you know, nobody believed in, nobody cared about. You know, I just know that, and it seems like the climate has changed here in the state of Oregon to where the judges and the cops and the prosecutors, they kind of see that we're just cycling people in and out constantly. This isn't really working. But you know, I just came from Florida, and the climate with the judges there are we need to put them in for longer is the answer. Put them, you know, build more prisons. That's the answer. We already have a system that doesn't work and we can't hire enough COs. Let's build more prisons. So that's more what I was asking as far as like what the climate in South Carolina is, not anything to insinuate insulting a judge.
Yeah. I think the judges are doing a great job.
Yes, sir. And honestly, though, like even saying all of that I just said, like it was a judge that saved my life in Florida. It was a judge that got me out of county jail where I would have sat till I went to trial and I would have went to prison, who gave me the opportunity to go to treatment instead of sitting in that county jail, because he saw something in me and he believed in me. And he was that judge. They called him, his name's Foxman. They called him Setum Free Foxman. So, you know, when I do need to acknowledge that when I say that about like the general ambiance and you know, ideals in Florida, there are the exceptions and they're out there saving lives. Y'all wouldn't know me without Setum Free Foxman giving me that opportunity.
Yeah. Hey man, listen, you know, as far as judges, just around the nation, you know, I can't, man, I think you got to take them individually, man. There's, you know, just like with anything, inmates, cops, judges, you know, lawyers, there's good ones and there's bad ones. Man, I've had judges reach out to me who really believe in what I'm doing and really believe in me. And I've offered mentorship, advice, and sent their personal phone numbers and, you know, from other states, you know, and I mean, there's good people in every field. I've worked with YouTubers who are retired police detectives from New York. I mean, and lawyers and you know, man, there's good and bad. I mean, you just got to go by the person, you know.
You know what really helped me get an insight into how judges have to operate if they're going to operate effectively was I was working at a sober living that held a lot of men, and it came down to me having to decide whether or not I was going to kick them out when they messed up. You know what I'm saying? Because at a certain point, the individual becomes a danger to the community.
Right.
And so you always have to keep in mind the community, but you want to have compassion for the individual. Right. I never believe that somebody's too far gone, that there's not hope that they can make it. And every time somebody gets caught doing something, bro, like they're always going to be like, if they're caught red-handed, they're going to be like, bro, just give me one more chance. I swear to God, I changed in the last 3 seconds, and you want to believe them. But when you have to weigh those scales personally, and you know, if that person walks out those doors and overdoses and dies, it's going to weigh on your soul and your heart forever.
Yeah.
Or if they keep doing what they're doing and they give somebody else in the community something and they overdose and die, it's going to weigh on your soul forever. It gave me so much profound respect for the struggle that judges have to go through when weighing cases like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that.
So I guess, do you have any idea of when you're going to be going to court next to finalize this thing?
I would say before the summer, probably within the next few months, if not sooner. You know, I don't have a specific thing, you know, told to me, but I know it will be within the next few months.
So I just have a couple more questions, man, now that we've gotten through basically what I would consider the meat and potatoes of the information that I really wanted my community to be able to hear from you, because you are an impressive human being, bro. And the way that you've changed your life after doing such a significant period of time, like you went into prison young, you spent a big chunk of your life in prison. And just in the short period of time since you've been out, you've accomplished so many things, like mental and emotional maturity and spiritual growth, and moving forward, being in a pro-social type of part of your community. I wanted to ask you, if you go back in, do you plan on packing the trunk? And if so, what are you taking in? Like what are you going to put in your prison purse, homie?
I mean, it'll be squeaky clean. As far as, I mean, hey, I don't know. I couldn't take but they got metal detectors at the courthouse. I couldn't
get the Pro Max in.
Yeah, I don't know. I might take some beard growth treatment in there with me, and try to come out with something like you got, man. I don't know, but I don't know, man. I mean, if I gotta go back, I'm gonna move intelligently and wisely, and if necessary, dangerously. I mean, that's all I know, man.
That is what it is, bro. That's that's the bottom line. That's the reality in there. And it's unfortunate that you might have to go back to that after making so much progress in changing your mentality and your mindset and the way that you live. But, it is what it is. I myself still have a warrant here in the state of Oregon for a DUI from 2014 that I have to go and clear. And I keep wanting to go clear it. And then I have like significant events that I have to take care of. Yeah. And the reality is that I don't know whether they could take me and let me out the next day. They could keep me for a year. So it's kind of a similar type of thing. It just depends on the judge, and whether the judge hates the fact that I've been on the run for a decade, or whether they're, like, hey, he came and turned himself in. He paid all his stuff off. Like,
and he hadn't had a DUI since then.
No, I haven't had a DUI since then. I've had, gun charges, possession, selling drug charges, organized fraud, counterfeiting, just some minor stuff, no big deal.
The usual. Who doesn't have some of those, No.
Yeah, but so, I've been kind of, and I would be lying if I were to say that I haven't been stalling on it. I 100% own that I've been stalling on it. Because just who wants to go back into that, bro? Like, who wants to go back into that? Who wants to go back to eating bologna sandwiches with green mayonnaise? And who wants to go and share a tiny little cement room with another dude and having to smell his shit when he's fucking passing one out? And also, I have concerns about, my wife while I'm gone.
Right.
If they were to keep me for any extended period of time. So I'm going to be facing up to that soon too. So I definitely feel for you, man. I get where you're coming from with all of this.
Let's go in on the same day.
Let's do it, bro.
Let's do it.
I have one more question. I think it's probably clearly the elephant in the room and the most obvious question. What is your favorite Island Boys song?
Is there not only one?
My favorite is I'm Sexy and I Know It.
Oh, that part where all I know is
work out.
Oh, well, all I know is the original, the OG. Island trying to me.
Oh yeah, that's
Island mine. I thought
there's somewhere right now making out with each other. Heavy petting is going on.
Oh, did you see their UFC gym training session? You might want to reconsider what you're saying about them, brother. You might. Them boys are throwing them things
are they getting
11 miles an hour? Okay.
Speaking of throwing them things, I thought you and Mr. Bick had a fight planned. Did he
won't
back
respond. Out? He refuses to respond.
Oh, Ian Bick.
He refuses to respond. Now he's on here. Suit. Listen, let me tell you something about Ian Bick, bro. And people are like, why are you calling out Ian Bick? You're much bigger than him. Ian Bick called out the internet. Did he not? For an open challenge. He said, I've been boxing. I've been training. I got merch sent to me from Mike Tyson. I'm ready to box. Anybody out there on TikTok want to box? I'm like, hey, I'll box. He's like, okay, yeah, no. He won't respond. And then he posted some training montage, which looks absolutely pitiful. Man, I'm not gonna. Absolutely pitiful. All right, them camera filters and 8K camera lenses do not make them punches look any more devastating. Those things look absolutely terrible. And but since that, yeah, he's not responding about anything related to me and him having a boxing match. So guys, if you're watching, man, ask Ian Bick, man, what's happening, man. I'm ready whenever.
The call out is real, dog.
Yeah.
So, and I think a lot of people have a misconception of Ian because he looks like that dude from The Sandlot or McLovin.
Can I say something? Can I say something? I think a lot of people think Ian Bick is much smaller than he actually is in person.
That's what I was about to say, bro. Yeah. I mean, he's 5'11", 6 foot.
Right. I'm 6 foot. He is barely shorter than me. And I have a picture with me and him standing together. I don't think it's been posted anywhere, but he's barely, he gets his little faux hawk. So that puts him even with me, but he's barely shorter than me. And I'm 6 foot. So he's not as small as you may think from watching his videos or whatever makes people think he's like 5'3" or 5'4". He's not. Okay.
No. When he got out of the car to pick me up at the airport the first time that I met him in person,
surprised. I
felt okie doped, bro.
Yeah.
I felt like he had been. I felt like I got catfished. I was expecting Millhouse, and he gets out and he's all.
Yeah, and he's not small. He's not just your height or close to it. He's also not a little guy. Like he's not the biggest guy, but he's not like a little tiny little boy. Like no, I mean, he's got some size on him now.
Every time I go to New York, we work out together.
Yeah.
And that boy's not a slacker, bro. He got heart and he's pushing real weight. Like he's pushing respectable weight. Yeah. He's not pushing like, my weight, but he's pushing respectable weight. I tried to get him to do legs with me and he punked all the way out, bro. Sorry, Ian, but you did.
Well, if we're going to talk about his legs, I've got some different things to say. But as far as his height and his upper body, I mean, he's not what people think.
No,
but
he's getting stacked, bro.
Nevertheless,
if he did a cycle or something, bro, he would all the way be Liver King.
All right, and but nevertheless, he won't respond. He refuses to respond. So,
well, he gave the call out, you answered, and he hung up the phone.
He did. He hung up and he wiped his glasses, put them back on, and walked the other way.
Whew. That's what well, maybe this will motivate him. I know he had another fight and he won that. So
he won.
He won his fight. I watched it. He did really good.
Who'd he fight? Peter Dinklage?
I'll tell you what, bro. His fight was 100% more on point than that Lucky Chucky
brother
Viking mindset abortion.
Jesus Christ.
I wouldn't have put circus music to Ian's fight, and we all saw that.
I saw some of Ian's fight. I mean, hey, that's great. Proud of you, brother. But great job, Ian. Congrats on the podcast. That's all I'll say.
Okay, so Ian Bick, you have been officially recalled out here. Jumpsuit is basically saying your heart pumps purple puppy piss.
Yes, sir.
And there ain't a man in your family or a hair on your body unless you get into a ring with him.
Pretty much.
All right. Well, Jumpsuit, thank you for hanging out, man. I'm sure that you're going to keep us updated, and I'm going to keep my community updated on what's going on with you. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit out and talk with me today and being so candid. Man, we all are wishing you the best and sending you positive energy. And if you need me to write like a letter of recommendation to the judge or some sort of weird threatening ominous thing with pictures like in blood of like skulls and stuff
but
on
just
it.
Send him a photo.
I'm a terrible artist, but I'll do it.
If you will, send the judge a video of Ian Bick's last fight and let him know he's in my corner. That should get me charges dropped right there. But no, seriously, I appreciate you, man. You've been nothing but a friend to me since I've met you, and a good guy, solid guy, and helped any way you could, despite what anybody else thinks about that out there. Behind the scenes, JD's a great guy and a true friend, and it makes me feel all that much better knowing that I got you in my corner if I do have to go through the worst. So I appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you too, brother. All right, I'll talk to you guys later, man. Thank you for riding out with us today.